I never thought my marriage would come with a user manual, let alone a rule book written by my wife. It started on a Tuesday. Not a special date, not an anniversary or a breaking point, just a regular Tuesday. I'd just gotten home from work, kicked off my shoes, and cracked open a beer. Rachel was already sitting on the couch, legs tucked underneath her, laptop in front of her, eyes darting across the screen. "We need to talk," she said, her tone light, but her face unreadable. A part of me, some deep, ancient male instinct, froze. You never want to hear those words from the person you've shared a bed with for nearly a decade. Still, I took the bait. About what? She bit her lip, closed her laptop, and looked at me like she'd rehearsed the next line a dozen times. "I think we should try opening our marriage." I didn't respond right away. Maybe I misheard. Maybe she meant metaphorically, like opening up emotionally, being more vulnerable. I waited for her to follow it with a nervous laugh or a "just kidding," but it never came. She just stared at me, expression calm and composed, as if she'd suggested Thai food instead of tacos for dinner. "You mean sex?" I asked. "With other people?" Her nod was slow, deliberate. "Yes, I've been reading about it. Ethical non-monogamy. There are rules and boundaries and ways to do it right. It could be good for us." "Good for us," I echoed, my voice hollow. "Since when do we need other people for this to be good?" "It's not about needing someone else," she said quickly, like she'd prepared for that response. "It's about freedom. Exploration. We're both still young. Don't you ever wonder what it would be like to not have limits?" I sipped my beer too fast and choked slightly. "Is this about someone?" I asked. "No," she said too quickly. "It's not like that. I haven't done anything. I just think we should talk about it. Try it. Just see." Rachel was always like that. Controlled. Analytical. She didn't argue. She presented proposals like she was submitting them to a boardroom. This wasn't a cry for help. It was a damn PowerPoint presentation with bullet points. She reached into her bag and pulled out a yellow legal pad. I shit you not. She had written out rules. "No jealousy," she read. "No sleeping with friends or coworkers. No bringing anyone into the house. Full honesty, always. And if either of us wants to stop, we stop." I stared at the list like it was written in a language I used to speak fluently, but couldn't understand anymore. The words made sense, but the reality didn't. I looked at her, my wife, the woman I married 7 years ago, the woman who used to cry at sad commercials and dance barefoot in the kitchen to Stevie Nicks. Lately, she'd been distant. More makeup, more gym visits, late nights that smelled like whiskey and men's cologne. Now I knew why. "I don't know, Rachel," I said slowly. "This isn't exactly normal." She smiled, and I hated how patronizing it felt. Normal is overrated. This is about being honest. About not pretending monogamy is easy when it clearly hasn't been. That part stung. She wasn't wrong. The intimacy had waned. The sex had become routine, silent, often mechanical. We used to laugh during sex, stupid, clumsy, passionate. But lately, it was like we were just checking off a chore. She moved closer, her fingers grazing my thigh. "I'm not asking you to agree right now. Just think about it. And be honest with me." And that's how it began. With a legal pad full of promises and a kiss that felt more like a deal being sealed than a moment of affection. I told myself I was open-minded, that I wasn't the jealous type, that I could handle it. That night, I lay awake next to her in bed, staring at the ceiling, my chest tight. Her breathing was steady, like she'd made peace with the decision, like it was already done. I wasn't ready. I knew that, but I said yes, because I didn't know how to say no without losing her. So I signed the rule book with my silence and pretended it was just another phase we'd outgrow. But deep down, I knew I'd just opened the door to something I couldn't close again. I didn't ask for details. I told myself I didn't need them, that not knowing would make it easier. Like if I avoided the names, faces, and specifics, I could trick myself into believing none of it was real. But you can't unsee the way someone changes when they've started getting what they want from someone else. Rachel changed. Fast. The first weekend after the conversation, she didn't say much. Claimed she was going out with friends. She wore a low-cut black top I'd never seen before and heels that made her legs look dangerous. Her perfume was different too. Heavier, sweeter, not the subtle scent she used to wear. It hit me like an aftershock once the door closed behind her. She didn't come home until 3 a.m. When she climbed into bed beside me, she didn't smell like whiskey or wine. She smelled like sweat and sex. Someone else's. She didn't say a word, just laid there facing the wall. I didn't ask, but my stomach churned like I'd swallowed battery acid. A few days later, I finally heard his name, Jason. She dropped it casually over dinner, like it meant nothing. Jason said the movie was overrated. I kind of agreed. Jason. I kept chewing, pretending it didn't hit like a hammer. Who's Jason? I asked too lightly. Oh, just a friend from work. She shrugged. We've had a few long conversations. He's really open-minded. I wanted to ask, is he the one you're sleeping with? But I already knew the answer. Jason became a recurring theme. She started texting more, leaving her phone face down on the counter when I walked into the room. She came home later, always with some vague excuse. Happy hour, overtime, some project deadline that sounded plausible enough to be true. But it was the subtle things that broke me. The way she started humming in the kitchen. How she lingered in front of the mirror longer than usual. The quick, involuntary smile she wore when she thought I wasn't watching. I remembered those smiles. She used to save them for me. I tried to keep things normal. I cooked dinner, picked up around the house, made little jokes to lighten the air, but she only seemed half present, like her body was in the room, but her mind was already back in Jason's arms. And maybe worse than the sex was knowing she wanted him, that she thought about him when I was lying beside her. We had sex once that week. A mercy fuck, if I'm being honest. She climbed on top of me and moved like she was in a hurry, like she was trying to scratch an itch that I didn't quite reach. No kissing, no eye contact, just friction. Afterward, she rolled over and went to sleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours, and that's when I realized something that nearly knocked the wind out of me. I didn't recognize her anymore. The woman I married used to love silly things, bad karaoke, candlelit dinners, rainy mornings under the covers. She used to trace circles on my chest when we cuddled. She used to kiss me like she was afraid she'd forget how. But this woman? She was a stranger in my bed. A stranger with rules, secrets, and a new friend who seemed to make her light up in all the ways I no longer could. It wasn't just sex. She was invested. I saw it the night she came home glowing, cheeks flushed, hair mussed in that careless, sexy way. She was giggling to herself as she walked into the house. I watched from the hallway as she stood in the kitchen, biting her lip, smiling at her phone. It was the kind of smile people wear when they feel wanted, when someone just made them feel alive. I hadn't made her smile like that in months. Later that night, I heard her in the bathroom moaning softly, touching herself. I lay still, listening through the wall like a fucking ghost. She didn't whisper my name. She whispered his. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Same eyes, same stubble, but hollower. Like someone had taken a chisel and carved out the inside, leaving only enough flesh to fake a smile. I wanted to be okay with it. I wanted to be the man who shrugged and said, "It's just sex. We agreed to this." But the truth is, I was unraveling. Jason wasn't just a name anymore. He was a presence, a shadow between us. He haunted the sheets, the air, her body. And every time she left the house, I knew exactly where she was going and who was waiting for her. One night, I finally cracked. She came home later than usual, barefoot, heels in her hand, hair wild with abandon. Her lipstick was smeared. She didn't even try to hide it. She looked radiant and used. Not broken, not ashamed, just satisfied. "Did you eat?" I asked, keeping my voice even. She tossed her heels by the door. "Grabbed something earlier." I waited. She blinked, caught off guard for the first time in weeks. "You didn't have to." "I know," I said. "I just wanted to." She walked past me, brushing my arm lightly. I flinched. She didn't notice. I stood there, listening as she climbed the stairs. When I finally followed, she was already in bed, scrolling on her phone, probably texting him. Jason, her new favorite toy, and I was the one left behind. Silent, obedient, faithful. But something shifted in me that night. I couldn't unsee it anymore. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay. If she could rewrite the rules, maybe I could, too. The thing about pretending not to care is, eventually, you start to believe your own lie. You repeat the script in your head like a mantra. It's just a phase. She'll come back to me. I'm okay with this. But I wasn't. I wasn't even close. The silence in our bedroom had become suffocating. The sheets still smelled like her, but no longer like us. She kept her phone close, her body distant. The only thing she gave me was space, and even that felt like a slow eviction. And then, one night, while she was out with Jason, no longer even pretending it was a girl's night. I stared at my own reflection in the living room window. The glass showed a man who hadn't shaved in 3 days, shirt half-buttoned, bourbon in hand. And for the first time since Rachel had brought up the rulebook, I heard a voice in my head that said, "You agreed to this." And that voice didn't sound weak. It sounded free. So, I grabbed my phone and opened an account. The app was clean, modern, full of eager faces trying to look casual. I wrote something stupid in my bio, new to this. Exploring. No expectations. Which, of course, was a lie. I had all kinds of expectations. I just didn't know what the hell I was doing. I matched with a few women. Nothing stuck. Some ghosted after a few messages. Others wanted hookups that felt hollow before we even met. There was Natalie, a divorced nurse who invited me over after 3 days of texting. Her bedroom was decorated in dusty rose and vanilla-scented candles. The sex was fine, quick, obligatory. She kissed like she was chasing an apology I hadn't made. I left before the sheets cooled. Then there was Zoe, a graphic designer who wore leather jackets and made casual jokes about choking. We had drinks. She flirted like a pro, tongue tracing the rim of her glass, fingers brushing my thigh under the table. But I kept comparing her to Rachel. And not favorably. The game Rachel was playing, this open marriage experiment, it wasn't about sex anymore. It was about dominance. About proving to herself, and me, that she could have what she wanted when she wanted it. And if I couldn't keep up, I'd fall behind. Be forgotten. So I kept trying. Match after match. Meetups that never went anywhere. Women who felt temporary. Like actors playing roles in a badly written play. Until I got a message one night, just past midnight. The name glowed on my screen like a dare. Haley. Rachel's sister. You know that internal voice that screams, "Bad idea, bad idea, bad idea"? Mine went completely silent. Her message was simple. Couldn't sleep. Saw you on here. Interesting. I stared at it for a full minute. Haley was, well, she was Haley. 3 years younger than Rachel. Wild, unpredictable, always the kind of woman who seemed to take pleasure in breaking expectations. Rachel used to call her the family chaos engine. She always flirted with me. At holidays, birthdays, you name it. Nothing overt, just little comments, lingering looks, jokes with teeth. Once, years ago, she'd leaned in too close during a wedding and whispered, "You're lucky I didn't meet you first." I laughed it off, but I never forgot it. Now she was here, in my messages, reaching out like a lit match. "Didn't expect to find you on here," I replied. Didn't expect to look. And yet, there was a pause. Then, she told me about your little arrangement. Open marriage, right? You okay with it? The honesty of it punched me in the chest. No games. No soft edges. Trying to be, I wrote. She's not the only one who can break rules, Haley replied. A beat. Then another message. Drinks tomorrow night? I don't remember deciding to say yes. My fingers just typed it. We met at a low-lit whiskey bar downtown, the kind with leather booths and jazz humming under conversation. Haley looked like trouble poured into a red dress. Short, tight, unapologetic. She wore heels that made her legs look endless and eyes that didn't blink. Wow, she said, sliding into the booth. You clean up nice for a man who's losing his marriage. I raised an eyebrow. Is that your idea of a greeting? She smirked. You used to laugh more. You used to wear less lipstick. I wear what gets attention. And here I thought this was just about catching up. Haley leaned in close, her breath laced with cinnamon whiskey. Come on. You and I both know why we're here. Her hand brushed my wrist. It wasn't accidental. We ordered drinks. Talked. Flirted. I tried to play it cool, but she had this energy, electric, reckless, that pulled at something buried inside me. Something Rachel hadn't touched in months. She listened in a way Rachel hadn't in a long time. She asked questions, made jokes, leaned into every story I told like it mattered. At one point, she reached across the table, her fingers tracing the edge of my sleeve. You ever think, she said softly, that maybe she wanted you to be jealous? I swallowed hard. Maybe she was hoping you'd do something reckless. I paused. And you're offering to be that something? Haley's lips curled into a grin. Oh, sweetheart, I'm offering to be everything she isn't. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Wanted, desired, alive. Rachel had rewritten the rules. Maybe it was time I stopped playing by them. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling while Rachel's soft, satisfied breaths filled the silence of our room. I wondered if she'd even noticed the scent of Haley's perfume still clinging to my shirt. It had been hours since we said goodnight in the bar's parking lot, but her touch hadn't faded from my skin. She'd kissed me just once. Slow, deliberate, with her hand curled lightly around my neck like she already knew what buttons to push. Then she whispered, "She's not the only one who gets to feel powerful." That kiss replayed in my mind on loop. Not because it was wild or messy, but because of how much control Haley had in it. She didn't ask permission. She didn't test the waters. She just took. And the worst part? I let her. No, I wanted her to. The next morning, Rachel made coffee like nothing had changed. She hummed to herself in the kitchen, barefoot, hair tied up in a lazy bun. She looked fresh, untouched, happy. I sat at the counter, watching her pour almond milk into her cup, and wondered who had made her smile like that last night. Jason, probably. She glanced up and smiled at me. "You were out late," she said, casual. "Yeah," I replied. "Met someone for drinks." "Oh." Her eyebrow lifted, just slightly. I nodded. "Someone you know, actually." She froze for a split second. The milk carton lingered in the air longer than necessary. "Who?" she asked carefully. I smiled over the rim of my mug. "Haley." The silence that followed was thick. She set the carton down. "Haley, my sister?" She reached out. I said, keeping my voice even. "Saw me on the app." Rachel studied me like she was trying to read the fine print of a contract she didn't remember signing. "You went out with her?" "Just drinks. We talked." Rachel didn't say anything for a moment. Then, a soft laugh. Not a happy one. A brittle, disbelieving one. "Wow," she said finally. "Didn't expect that." Neither did I. She didn't ask if anything happened. Maybe she didn't want to know. Or maybe she already did. For the next few days, things between Rachel and me existed in a strange kind of limbo. We shared space, but not affection. Polite conversation, shared chores, no intimacy. I couldn't tell if she was bothered by what I'd said, or if she genuinely didn't care. Either way, she never brought Haley up again. But Haley brought herself up plenty. She started texting me. Nothing overtly flirty at first. Little messages. "That drink was stronger than I thought." Or, "You always been that good at pretending not to enjoy yourself." Then one night, she sent a picture. Just her legs, bare, smooth, crossed at the ankles on a hotel bed. "Thinking about you." The caption read. My pulse spiked. I stared at the screen like it had turned radioactive. I knew it was a game. She was testing me, seeing how far she could push. But the truth was, she didn't need to push that hard. Curiosity had already done most of the work. The next night, we met again. Same bar, different booth. Haley wore a dark green top that clung to her curves, her neckline dipping just enough to make it difficult to focus. Her hair was down this time, loose waves that framed her face in soft chaos. We didn't talk about Rachel. Not directly. Instead, we talked about everything else. Our childhoods, our careers, our regrets. She told me about the time she ran away at 16, only to return home 3 hours later with a stray cat and a black eye. "She always tried to fix me," Haley said, stirring her drink. I think she liked having a broken sister. Made her feel in control. "You're not broken," I said. She looked up, eyes sharp. "Maybe not anymore." After another drink, we ended up walking the quiet stretch behind the bar, away from the noise. The night air was cool, crisp. Haley stepped close. "You ever wonder," she said, voice low, "what would have happened if we met first?" I laughed, a little bitter. "You said that to me once. At a wedding." I meant it. I looked at her then, not just her face, but her. The mischief, the defiance, the way her lips parted slightly, as if waiting for a decision to be made. "You're playing with fire," I said. Her fingers brushed my wrist. "Good. I want to burn." She kissed me again, this time longer, deeper. I didn't stop her. I didn't want to. When we finally pulled apart, her breath was shaky. "You don't have to lie about it," she whispered. "I know she's tearing you up inside, but you don't have to let her be the only one in charge anymore." "She set the rules," I said. Haley's smile was wicked and soft all at once. "So break them." We didn't sleep together that night, but the promise hung between us like a thread ready to snap. I drove home in silence, my heart pounding louder than the engine. Rachel was already asleep. I stood in the doorway, watching her chest rise and fall. The same woman I'd once wanted more than air. The same woman who now gave her body to someone else without shame or consequence. And somewhere inside me, A line crossed itself. I wasn't just curious anymore. I was ready. Rachel left again that night. Same perfume, same ritual, same little lie about staying late at a co-worker's place to go over numbers for Q4. She didn't even flinch when she said it. Just kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her coat, and disappeared. I watched her car pull away from the window. Then I waited. I didn't have a plan, not exactly. But Haley did. An hour after Rachel left, there was a knock on the door. Not a text. Not a tease. A knock. I opened it to find her standing there in a long red coat, lips already parted in amusement, like she knew exactly what I was thinking. Didn't want to wait until the next drink, she said, stepping inside. She let the coat slide off her shoulders. Underneath was red silk. A short dress. Bare thighs. No shame. I stood frozen, her scent already flooding the hallway. Sweet spice and confidence. She moved past me like she owned the place, heels clicking softly against the hardwood. When I closed the door, she turned, biting her lower lip just enough to look dangerous. "You okay?" she asked, head tilted. Not even close. She smiled. "Good. You're finally honest." I didn't offer her a drink. I didn't ask her to sit. The tension between us didn't need cushioning. She took her time walking through the house. Her fingers grazed the pictures on the hallway wall, wedding photos, family vacations, our trip to Portugal where Rachel and I had made love on a beach under a fading sun. Haley stopped at one photo. Rachel in a sundress, eyes squinting at the camera, lips curled in a smile I hadn't seen in a long time. "You know she doesn't deserve this version of you," Haley said. I didn't respond. She turned around, her eyes locking onto mine. She broke the rules first. Technically, I muttered, we agreed. She didn't. She manipulated. Then she took a step forward. And another. Until her body was pressed against mine. "I'm not here to fix anything," she whispered. Her fingers slid beneath the hem of my shirt. "I'm here to make her beg." I should have said no. She was Rachel's sister. But all I could feel was the fire she ignited with just those 6 words. The moment we touched, hesitation died. Her lips met mine with force, hunger, no pretense of tenderness. She kissed like she wanted to leave bruises. Her hands were in my hair, at my belt, down my spine. I backed her against the hallway wall, my mouth tracing the line of her jaw, her throat. I didn't think about Rachel. Not once. Not even when Haley whispered my name like it was hers to claim. We made it to the bedroom. Our bedroom. And something about that felt both vicious and poetic. She climbed into the bed without hesitation, that red dress barely clinging to her curves, her eyes glinting in the low light, like she was daring me to break every promise I'd ever made. I hovered over her, breath shaky, heart thudding against my ribs. "This is wrong," I muttered. She pulled me down, her lips brushing my ear. "So make it feel right." I don't remember how long we spent in that bed. I only remember the way she moved, like every motion was designed to erase Rachel from my body. There was no hesitation, no guilt, just raw heat. Haley wrapped her legs around me, fingernails digging into my back, pulling me closer like she wanted to consume me. The sounds she made weren't delicate. They were declarations, warnings. And when we collapsed beside each other, breathless and tangled, she didn't rush to pull the covers up. She just stretched out like a cat, fully exposed, lips swollen and hair a glorious mess. Then she leaned in again, barely a whisper this time, like a secret meant only for me. "Let's make her beg." A chill ran through me. Not from fear, from the clarity of it. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was a power shift. Rachel had set the rules, written the game, drawn the board, and I'd played along, quiet, obedient, hurt. But now, I wasn't a piece on the board anymore. I was a wild card. Haley rolled onto her side, fingers tracing lazy circles on my chest. "You're not the man she married anymore," she murmured. "Good," I said, because that man would have begged to be chosen. This one, he knew he didn't need her permission anymore. There's a kind of clarity that only comes after crossing a line you swore you never would. Lying there beside Haley, my skin still warm with the memory of her body wrapped around mine, the silence in the room didn't feel empty. It felt powerful. No guilt. No panic. Just a slow-burning sense of finally. Rachel still hadn't come home. She hadn't texted. No calls. Probably thought I was curled up in bed like a good little husband, waiting for her to bring the smell of Jason back into our sheets. She had no idea. Haley propped herself up on her elbow, watching me like she could see the wheels turning in my head. "You're not regretting it, are you?" "No," I said, and meant it. She smiled like she'd been expecting that answer. "You always struck me as a little too decent for your own good." Guess I was wrong. I reached out and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. I was decent, until I learned what being decent gets you. Lonely nights. Empty beds. She leaned in, kissed my shoulder. A wife who doesn't even care enough to fake it. The room still smelled like sex and sweat, and something sweeter beneath it all. Liberation, maybe. Or rebellion. I wasn't sure yet. "I want to see her face," Haley murmured, fingers gliding across my chest. "When she finds out what it feels like." What feels like? To lose. Her words sank deep. Because until now, that's exactly what I'd been doing, losing. Every night she left, every moan she gave to Jason, every fake smile across our dinner table. I had been losing pieces of myself. But now I had something she couldn't take back. Her sister. The next few days blurred. Rachel came home the morning after, hair tousled, lipstick smudged, and not a single trace of shame on her face. She kissed my cheek absently as she walked in. "Morning." I almost laughed. Morning? Like we were just roommates. Like she hadn't just spent the night stretched out under someone else while I was in bed with the one person she never saw coming. She didn't notice the faint scent of Haley's perfume still clinging to the sheets. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. Cowardice or indifference? I couldn't decide which was worse. That afternoon, Haley texted me. "She doesn't know, does she?" I replied, "Not yet." "Good," she wrote. "Let her think she's still winning." And so the game began. We saw each other in secret. Drinks that turned into motel visits. Quick rendezvous in parked cars. Once, when Rachel was supposed to be working late, Haley came to the house again. She wore a black trench coat and nothing underneath. She climbed on top of me on our couch, moaning loud enough that part of me wanted Rachel to walk in. Every encounter with Haley was a match thrown on gasoline. She was fire and mischief and pure chaos. But it wasn't just about the sex, not entirely. It was the way she saw me, touched me, spoke to me like I was a man again, not just a placeholder in a failed marriage. "You're waking up," she said once as we laid tangled in the sheets. "What do you mean?" Her nails gently scraped my ribs. "You've been sleepwalking through your life for years. She made you dull, predictable, soft." I turned to her, my voice low. "And you like your men jagged?" Haley grinned. "I like them real." But as addictive as it was, I knew this couldn't last. Not like this. It was too unstable, too exposed. We weren't just dancing on a line, we were setting fire to it. Every time Haley left my bed, part of me feared it would be the last time. Not because I wanted her to stay forever, but because I wasn't sure I could go back to who I was before her. Then came the night that changed everything. Rachel had gone out again, another work dinner. This time in a dress I'd never seen before. Red, fitted, hair curled, lips stained a deep berry. She didn't even bother lying anymore. Just winked at me and said, "Don't wait up." So I didn't. I invited Haley over within the hour. We didn't rush this time. We cooked, drank wine. She laughed at how stiff I used to be about the rules. "Remember that list she made?" Haley asked, curled up in my shirt after dinner. "Yeah." No jealousy, no drama, no strings. She scoffed. She wanted a fantasy without consequences. She wanted control. I corrected. Well, Haley's smile was wicked. She lost it. We moved to the bedroom slowly this time. Less frenzy, more tension. Haley undressed me like she was unwrapping a gift she knew she'd earned. The way she kissed me, it was war and worship. When we were done, sweaty, breathless, hearts pounding, she lay beside me and whispered, "She thinks she wrote the game." I looked at her. "She forgot you were allowed to play too." For the first time in months, I felt something sharp and clean cut through the fog Rachel had left me in. Not rage, not sorrow, purpose. Haley was no longer a reckless choice or a dirty secret. She was my move. And now it was Rachel's turn to watch me play. I should have known that secrets, no matter how carefully kept, don't stay buried forever. Not when they're wrapped in red silk and whispered in the same bed where you once promised forever. Rachel came home early. It was a Thursday. Haley had just stepped out of the shower, steam still swirling in the bathroom like a slow confession. I was shirtless, still in bed, body loose and spent. Her bra, black lace, small, unmistakably not Rachel's, was draped over the chair in the corner. I remember the front door slamming. keys hitting the hallway table, and the sound of her heels clicking across the floor like a metronome counting down to detonation. The bedroom door creaked open. I didn't even have time to stand. Rachel froze. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She didn't even blink. Her eyes flicked from me to the bra, to the edge of Haley's bare leg just visible through the crack in the bathroom door. Haley emerged a second later, towel wrapped around her like a loose apology, hair damp, skin flushed. Then it happened. 1 second of stillness that felt like gravity itself was waiting to see who'd speak first. Rachel exhaled through her nose. Not loud, not theatrical, just a slow, seething breath. "You crossed the line," she said, her voice low, flat. Haley didn't flinch. She stood there with her chin high, her towel clutched in one hand, the other resting on the doorframe like she had every right to be there. Rachel took a step forward, then another. Her eyes didn't leave mine. "You brought her into this? Into our house?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Not at first. Then, "You brought Jason into our marriage. Into our bed. If not literally, then in every way that mattered. You made the rules, Rachel. I just stopped following them." Rachel laughed. Once. Sharp. Ugly. "You think this is the same? My sister?" "I think it's exactly the same," Haley said, her voice cool. "You don't get to play victim just because you didn't see the checkmate coming." Rachel turned on her like a knife. "You are unbelievable. And you're predictable," Haley replied, arms folding. I stood there in the center of it all, half naked, exhausted, still tasting Haley on my tongue. And for the first time since this twisted game began, I didn't feel powerless. Rachel walked over to the dresser, opened the drawer, and pulled out a shirt, mine, then threw it at me like it burned her fingers. "Get dressed." "Why?" I asked. "Because I'm done," she snapped. This is it. We're over." It didn't land like I thought it would. I expected fury, fear, a knot in my gut, but all I felt was relief. "We were already over," I said. She didn't respond, just stared at me for a long, quiet beat. Then she turned to Haley. "You want him? You got him." Haley's jaw tightened, but she didn't speak. Rachel started to leave, but paused in the doorway. "You always wanted what I had," she said over her shoulder. "And now you've got the leftovers." The door slammed. The silence that followed felt like it had its own weight. Haley let out a long breath. "Well, that went better than expected." I sat down at the edge of the bed, my heart pounding in my throat. "You okay?" She shrugged. I've been waiting to say something like that to her for years. She meant what she said. "I know." I stood, pulling on the shirt Rachel had thrown. It smelled like laundry detergent and a life I didn't belong to anymore. "She's going to burn everything down," I said. Haley walked over and placed her hands on my shoulders. "Then let it burn." I looked at her, this woman who had stepped out of the shadows of someone else's story and rewritten the entire ending. "No more secrets," I said. Agreed. We stood there, still tangled in the aftermath, not sure what came next, but for the first time, I didn't care. The lies were out. The line was crossed. And the game was finally over. I thought the storm had passed after Rachel slammed that door. I really did. But silence, it turns out, is just thunder biding its time. 3 days later, they met face to face. I didn't arrange it. I wouldn't have been that reckless, or that naive. But Haley had stopped hiding. And Rachel? Rachel wasn't used to losing. When two women who had spent most of their lives locked in a Cold War finally decide to light the match, there's no such thing as collateral damage. Just fire. It happened on a Sunday. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Haley came downstairs wearing one of my t-shirts and nothing else. Bare legs, sleepy eyes, the soft smirk of someone who'd just spent the night tangled in satisfaction. Then the doorbell rang. Haley glanced at me, suddenly alert. "You expecting someone?" she asked. I shook my head. The moment I opened the door and saw Rachel on the front step, I knew it wasn't a visit. It was an ambush. She wore black, tight jeans, leather jacket, boots. Her lips were red like blood. She didn't look like someone broken. She looked like someone sharpening a blade. "Is she here?" she asked. Haley stepped into view behind me, sipping from my coffee mug like it was champagne. "Well," she said brightly, "this is awkward." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "You always were good at that, weren't you? Walking into things that didn't belong to you." "Funny," Haley said, leaning against the doorframe. "I thought you gave him away." I stepped between them, hands up. "Don't do this here." "Where then?" Rachel asked, shoving past me into the living room like she still owned the place. Haley followed. No hesitation. I knew you'd pull something, Rachel said. But my sister? Really? That's the line you chose to cross. You made the rules, Haley snapped. You just didn't expect anyone else to learn the game. You think this is a game? Haley's smile was tight, bitter. You slept with your coworker. Lied about it. Kept lying. And now you're pissed someone finally played you at your own level. I never lied, Rachel snapped. I couldn't help it, I laughed. A short, humorless sound that hung between us like smoke. Rachel's eyes turned to me. Oh, so now you're going to take her side. I'm not taking sides, I said. I'm just done pretending you were some innocent in all of this. Her mouth twitched. You know what she's doing, right? This isn't about you. It never was. She's hated me since we were kids. Because you always made sure I stayed under your shadow, Haley said. Rachel turned toward her, eyes flashing. You were a mess, Haley. Mom and Dad let you get away with everything. I was the one who cleaned it all up, every time. You mean every time you used me to make yourself look better? Don't flatter yourself. I'm not. I'm just not pretending anymore. Rachel scoffed. You always wanted what I had. You used to ask me what sex felt like just so you could imagine having my life. Haley's voice dropped. And you used to describe it in detail. Don't act like you didn't enjoy having me watch you glow with everything I wasn't allowed to have. Silence. I'd never heard that before. Never felt that before. This wasn't just rivalry. It was decades of buried jealousy and twisted admiration erupting like a volcano. I was your sister, Haley said. And you turned me into your competition before I even knew what that meant. Rachel took a shaky breath. And now what? You win? You think he's going to choose you and we'll all just pretend this isn't sick? I don't want him to choose, Haley said, suddenly quiet. That's what makes this different. I didn't take him from you. You left him behind. Rachel's eyes went glassy. Her jaw tightened. I gave you an open door, she whispered. And you kicked it down. No, I said. You gave me a test I didn't sign up for. Then you left me alone in it. Rachel turned to me, tears threatening, but her voice stayed sharp. So this is it. You're really staying with her? I looked between them. Two women, one broken bond. One standing in the ashes. I'm not sure what I'm doing yet, I admitted. But I know I'm not going back to something that only worked when I stayed silent. Rachel blinked, and for the first time, I saw it. Not rage, not bitterness, but hurt. Real hurt. You didn't even fight for me, she said. No, I said. Because you weren't there to fight for. She turned, her body stiff, and walked to the door without another word. As it slammed behind her, the house fell into silence. Haley let out a breath and sat down on the edge of the couch. She'll never forgive me, she said. Maybe she never forgave you to begin with. Haley looked up at me. Do you? I didn't answer. Because that wasn't a yes or no question. That was the beginning of whatever came next. The divorce papers came in a manila envelope with Rachel's handwriting on the corner. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't even bother to stamp it through her lawyer, just mailed it herself, like she wanted me to feel every ounce of her finality with the weight of her signature. It landed on the kitchen table with a thud that felt louder than it should have. Haley was in the next room, barefoot, hair still damp from the shower, humming while she folded one of my t-shirts. I didn't tell her right away. I just stared at the envelope, the past 7 years pressed between thin pages. When she finally noticed the silence, she looked over. Is that it? I nodded. Haley approached slowly, her expression unreadable. She didn't even get a lawyer? Guess not. She reached out, slid the envelope closer to her, and peeled it open like she was checking the results of a bet she already knew she won. She blame you? She asked. Of course. Haley exhaled. And me? She called it betrayal. She would, she said softly. You didn't just break the rules, you broke the illusion. You weren't supposed to stop chasing her. I stopped waiting. There was a moment of quiet. Haley placed the papers back on the table. You're not angry? She asked. I was, I admitted. I wanted her to feel it. All of it. The rejection, the confusion. I wanted her to know what it was like to sleep next to someone who was already halfway gone. She does now. But she won't admit it, I said. She's rewriting the story already. In her version, I'm the one who couldn't handle the freedom. I'm the villain. You're not. She doesn't care. And that's what stung most. Not the betrayal, not even the lies. Just how easily she handed me the blame. Like it made her feel cleaner. Like screwing a coworker for months was fine as long as I stayed quiet about it. I signed the first page. Haley watched. "You're really doing it," she said. I already did. There's something strange about watching a marriage end not with a bang, but with a pin scratch and a resigned sigh. I wasn't sad. Not anymore. Just hollow in the way people are after finishing a book that didn't end the way they hoped. We didn't talk much that night. Haley stayed, curled against me in bed, fingers tracing small circles on my chest. "Do you think she loved you?" she asked softly. "I think she loved being loved by me." "Same thing." "No," I said. "Not even close." Haley didn't reply, but I could feel her breathing change. Slower. Heavier. The next morning, Rachel's number lit up my phone. For a moment, I debated answering. Then I did. "I got the signed copy," she said. Her voice was clipped, brittle. "Good. Just wanted to make sure you understood. This was your choice." I laughed, sharp and short. "You left long before I did, Rachel. That doesn't mean you had to screw my sister. Doesn't mean you had to screw Jason. That was different." "No," I said. "It wasn't." She was quiet for a long moment. "Then, you chose the wrong sister." Her words landed like a slap. I didn't respond. "Not yet. I hope you realize what you gave up," she added. "I do," I said. "And I don't miss it." Click. She hung up. No goodbye. No closure. Just a final twist of the knife. I sat there for a while, the dial tone buzzing in my ear, before setting the phone down. Haley walked in, coffee in one hand, wearing nothing but one of my button-downs. "You okay?" She said I chose the wrong sister. Haley snorted. "That's rich." "Is she wrong?" Haley set the mug down and looked at me. Not flirty, not smug, just raw. Honest. "I'm not Rachel," she said. "I don't want you to choose me. I just want you to stop pretending like any of this was fair to you." I looked at her, really looked, and saw all the cracks Rachel never bothered to notice, where defiance lived beside vulnerability, where pride covered wounds. She wasn't trying to replace Rachel. She was trying to be seen. "Haley," I said quietly, "you didn't just help me move on. You made me realize I'd already left long before you got here." For the first time, she didn't smirk. She smiled. Soft. Real. And in that moment, I knew something deeper than sex had grown between us. Not certainty, not safety, but something more dangerous, possibility. Haley and I disappeared for a while. No dramatic social media posts. No loud declarations. Just gone. We packed bags on a Wednesday, loaded up her dusty silver coupe, and drove north with no clear destination. I left my ring on the bathroom counter and the memories of that house behind the front door, like shedding an old skin. Rachel didn't text. She didn't ask where I went. And that silence, oddly enough, was the kindest goodbye she ever gave me. Haley drove barefoot, windows down, hair in her eyes, music too loud. We didn't talk much the first few hours. We didn't need to. Just being out of that house, away from the tension and the broken glances, felt like being able to breathe for the first time in months. She pulled into a small lakeside motel just past midnight, halfway through nowhere. There were only 6 rooms and 1 vending machine. We didn't even check the sheets before collapsing onto the bed. We didn't have sex that night. We didn't need to. Instead, she curled into me, warm and quiet, her breath slowing against my neck. She slept like someone who trusted the ground beneath her. And I laid there wondering how something that started in betrayal had become the most honest thing in my life. The next morning, we found a coffee shop that smelled like cinnamon and second chances. Haley sat across from me in an old hoodie, legs folded beneath her in the chair, no makeup, no walls. "I used to think love was a performance," she said. "You hit the right marks, say the right lines, get the applause. But I was always just trying to be what someone else wanted." "And now?" I asked. She shrugged. "Now I'm just showing up." That stuck with me. Rachel never let me just show up. There was always an expectation, a standard, a checklist. If I wasn't pursuing her, adoring her, then I was failing. But Haley didn't want a performance. She just wanted me there. So we stayed. A week. Then another. We didn't call it love. We didn't call it anything. We hiked during the day, made love slowly at night. Sometimes on the creaky motel bed. Sometimes on a blanket by the lake under the stars. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't revenge. It was ours. One night, wrapped in a tangle of sheets, I asked her, "What if this isn't real?" Haley turned to me, propping her chin on my chest. "It feels real. I'm not healed. I'm not asking you to be." You deserve more than a man still haunted by his wife's perfume. She kissed the center of my chest. Then haunt me with it. I'll burn it out of you slowly. There was something terrifyingly beautiful about her patience. Rachel always needed control. Haley offered freedom. Rachel measured intimacy in how many boxes I could check. Haley gave it without needing a reason. But what struck me most wasn't the sex, or the escape, or even the lack of rules. It was the quiet. The way she let me sit in silence without filling it. The way I could exhale around her without apology. The way she saw me, really saw me, and didn't flinch. We stayed long enough for the motel clerk to know us by name. Long enough that the barista stopped asking if we wanted menus. Long enough that I stopped waiting for Rachel to come crashing back in with accusations and demands. She didn't. She never called again. In that void, I started to find something I hadn't felt in years, myself. One night, Haley walked out of the bathroom wearing nothing but one of my old t-shirts, her hair still damp, her eyes soft and wild. She climbed into bed, pulled the covers over us, and whispered, "You know what she never gave you?" I turned to her. "What?" "Peace." It landed like truth often does, quiet, final, irrefutable. Rachel gave me passion, challenge, fire, but never peace, never stillness, never that quiet, soul-deep knowing that I didn't have to earn love like a paycheck. Haley gave me that, not in grand gestures or declarations, but in the way she touched my hand when we passed a stranger, in the way she let my pain unfold without rushing to clean it up, in the way she said nothing when I cried for the first time in her arms, and just held me tighter. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but it was honest, and that made all the difference. She showed up unannounced. Of course she did. It had been 2 months since I'd seen Rachel. 2 months since I signed her envelope. Since Haley and I packed the car and vanished into the quiet edges of nowhere. I thought she might send a text. Try to justify herself. Maybe hurl one final grenade before walking away forever. But she waited. She waited until the silence between us had grown soft and still. Until I stopped looking over my shoulder. Until Haley and I had slipped into something dangerously close to peace. I had just stepped outside to throw out the trash when her car pulled up. Same black SUV. Same careless grace in the way she stepped out in heels too clean for country gravel. She didn't look angry or fragile. She looked composed, polished, calculated. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stared at her, taking in the hair curled just enough, the lips painted like she'd stepped out of a photo shoot. And suddenly, I could see it all again, the performance, the structure, the effort it took to appear unrattled. "You came all this way for closure?" I asked. Rachel tilted her head, giving me the kind of smile I'd once found intoxicating. Now it just felt rehearsed. "I came to offer you a way back," she said. That was it. No small talk. No apology. No preamble. Just control, like always. "You're serious?" I said, arms crossed. "I've had time to think," she said. "This got out of hand. We let things get ugly." "We." She still said we, like I'd jumped first. "You were the one who wanted an open marriage," I reminded her. "And you agreed." I agreed to something that was supposed to be fair. Rachel's mouth twisted. "Sleeping with my sister wasn't fair. Neither was you sleeping with Jason for 2 months and calling it growth." She inhaled through her nose, then softened her voice. "We don't have to keep score. We can call it even. Start fresh." I laughed. Not bitter, just tired. "Fresh? After everything?" Rachel stepped closer. "You and I were good together. We can be again. Let her go." "She's not the problem," I said. "She never was." "You're just infatuated," she said, her tone slipping into something cold. "It'll fade." "No. What faded was how I used to chase you. What faded was my willingness to be a passenger in my own damn life." Rachel's lips parted, surprise breaking through her calm. "So this is it. You made the rules," I said. "You built the game. But now you don't like how it ends." "I didn't think you'd become someone else." "I didn't," I said. "I just stopped being who you needed me to be." She stared at me for a long moment, and for the first time, she looked tired. Not angry, not manipulative, just tired. "This could have been different," she said. "You're right," I replied. "You could have loved me instead of testing me." We stood in silence. Then she stepped back, hands sliding into the pockets of her coat. "She's going to leave you, you know? That's what Haley does. She gets bored. She burns things." I nodded. "Maybe. And when she does?" I smiled. "Then I'll still be better off than I was with you." That was it. No screaming. No tears. Just the end, finally spoken out loud. She left without another word. I walked back inside to find Haley sitting on the couch, feet tucked under her, reading some beat-up novel she'd bought at a thrift store 3 towns back. She looked up. Everything okay? I sat beside her and pulled her legs into my lap. She came back. Haley didn't blink. Did she say it? Say what? The thing women say when they don't regret cheating but regret being out-cheated. I smirked. Pretty much. She leaned in, pressing her lips to my jaw. And I told her no. Haley nodded. Good. We sat there for a while, the soft hum of the old fridge filling the room like background music to a story that finally made sense. You know, I said, I never really agreed to her rules. Then why did you follow them? Because I thought that's what love was. Compromise. Sacrifice. Giving up parts of yourself to make someone else feel whole. And now I think love should feel like freedom. She curled into me, and I held her close. No rings. No contracts. No expectations. Just this strange, beautiful stillness. Then I said it out loud. No more rules. Haley looked up at me, eyes glowing. No more regrets, she whispered. And for the first time in years, I knew I wasn't just starting over. I was finally starting right.